What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Keep Climbing podcast. We're back today at Carcio Field. We got the boys taking some BP behind us here, getting ready for game 10 of the PCDL. We're in starting week 4. These guys will play all the way through, the back end of July. We've got YBM out here live streaming the games. You guys can go check those out every Monday and Tuesday. The games are live streamed. Really fortunate to be able to, kind of two birds with one stone here and keep the content train rolling. So I got my man Darin Cissell back here with us today, and we're going to talk about a topic that's very relevant for the time right now. It probably only applies to a certain demographic of people, and that's okay. But it's a concept of signability. Next week is the Major League Draft. You've got people all over the country, hopefuls, right? That they're going to get drafted. We've both been drafted and understand a little bit of the dynamics. Darin's son Titus has also just recently gone through the process. So a lot of experience, I guess, going through that, walking through that, and understanding what that looks like. Both of us these days get a ton of questions, about things like that. Should I go to college? Should I sign? What does professional baseball minor league life look like? And now even still, with all the changing, evolving things in college recruiting, how much that changes everything, and all of this stuff definitely works together. It's kind of made a whirlwind of different thoughts and decisions for players and families. There's a ton that goes into it. And, some of the dynamics, can be very personal to each individual player. And I think that's the point of the topic today, maybe, is how for you to decide what's right for you. What situation's right for you. We could probably spin that off even into, different college topics too, to
absolutely.
make it a little bit more, widely distributable to everybody. But at the end of the day, the point is always finding the right fit for you. And trying to sift through some of the things on the business side of things, that would influence that.
Yeah. But I think I talked to some people this week, and I remind them, we've had this talk many times, when you leave high school, it becomes a business, especially with NIL now.
Absolutely.
Like it is a business. You start making business decisions. Holy cow, it's early in the morning. I'm not teaching currently.
Yep.
It is. Business decisions there, got out that time. But as far as like you start negotiating NIL, you start negotiating your scholarships, it's just not what it used to be of like, hey, this is all the money we got, this is all I can do for you, because now schools have other resources to pull from. And then when you get into this topic and this week with the draft, I guess the draft would actually be today when this comes out, next Monday.
Yeah.
So the draft's probably currently going on.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people, and last year was exciting and tough all at the same time, because there's so many variables that go into should you sign, should you go to college, what college should you go to?
Yep.
I mean, I think the life, when I met with some people this week, the thing that I tried to emphasize over and over is like that lifestyle, the minor league lifestyle, it's not glamorous, it's not social, it's not fun, it's just a development program.
Yeah.
And when you're at the bottom of that development, there's no one watching.
Yep.
You go to the backfields at spring training. I just got back a couple weeks ago. My son's games might have 6 to 8 people there.
Yep.
And they're all just parents there stopping through.
It's practice games, spring training practice games all year long. I think that's what you told me when you got back.
Oh,
like it's spring training the entire year.
And that's what Titus went out in February, and they have spring training, then you have spring training games, then he went to extended spring training with the other high school guys except one, and now he's in the ACL, which is nothing more than more spring training games. So if you've never been to a spring training minor league game, not a lot of energy
none
compared to go throw at Arkansas.
No doubt.
Like, and that's where, when you're talking about it's personal.
Yeah.
Like for the kid that is just driven by, I want to be the best player I can be, and I don't care about the social life, going to tailgates, doing all those things that college, and that's a great experience. I mean, you did that, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We were just talking before this, I look back on some of my experience, and the one thing that I want to echo for sure is how much more it felt like a business from 19 years old and on up than it did from 18 years and on down. Especially that jump there, whether you're going to college or whether you're looking at signing professionally, that jump is coming regardless, because the people and the environment that you're going into next, that's someone's career, family, and livelihood. So understanding that dynamic, that baseball's for most people has all been about fun before that, and that being like the top thing, you know, that you develop that love for the game, that if you don't have that really deep love for the game and you get in either one of these experiences later on, the game will find a way to weed you out.
Yeah.
You know, the game will definitely find a way to weed you out.
Quickly.
And and you know, so that's why I tell people all the time, you know, that like that love of the game and finding that joy within the game is so important. Is so important, and you know, in those environments, speaking from experience and having been through those, you almost have to dig a little deeper to keep finding that love for the game, you know, because you're not out there playing with your buddies anymore. You're not in an environment where, you know, you fail and the coaches are going to be like, hey buddy, it's okay. Like, no, it's go time, you know, and it's always someone's job. And, you know, I will say that the stark differences between those two environments is that in a development friendly environment, like what Titus is in and lower levels of the minor leagues, it's entirely about development. You're going to get all of your at-bats, you're going to get your innings, you're going to get your opportunities.
Stats don't matter.
Yeah, it's going to be all about what you do with those. You know, because the competition's level is so much higher, you know, that is much more of a challenge. So you're dealing with big waves of adversity that you're not used to and you've never seen before, you know? Yeah. And on the other side of the fence in college, it's way more about like winning right now and what can you do for me this year, and are you going to be in my lineup, are you going to be on the mound for me, and what you're going to be able to produce right now. And you know, especially with the changing landscape in college baseball, that's much more on these coaches' brains earlier than it's ever been, right? Like you see very few and fewer by the years, you know, as the years goes on, there's even fewer of how many people are coming to a school and the coaches have in mind, like, well, he might be able to produce for us in 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case may be, right? That we just don't have time for that. We don't have roster space for that, and understanding what that does to the rest of the landscape, which is more of what we talked about in our last episode. So go back and check that one out. But as far as this one goes, you know, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about, you know, what type of thoughts, considerations, dynamics should be in play on if you should sign or not, and what professional baseball kind of has in store for you, right? So, you know, so in that light, you know, the couple of things that come to my mind the most is it really don't even have a whole lot to do with on the field. We'll get to that in a second, you know, off the field, you know, how much, you know, how reliant and independent or dependent. Yeah, how mature you are, how reliant you still all are on your family for so many things as a, you know, 18-year-old kid, that now when you're 19, you've got your own apartment, you got to get yourself to and from everything. You don't got anybody reminding you to do X, Y, Z or to be somewhere. You're off on an island, totally on your own. And most of the clubs do have a pretty good support system for those lower levels, that they understand what those players are
much
going
better
through
than
off the field.
it used to be.
100%.
But it's still, like, it's on you. Your laundry,
you're big boy.
This is an adult job. This is no longer college. It's not. It's a job and it's a grind.
No doubt.
And the support has increased tremendously, but it's still a difficult job. Like, and we've had this talk, and we had Nate Orr many times. It doesn't take long before professional baseball, you realize it's a job. Yeah. It goes from a dream to a job pretty quick. About 10 days in, I was like, I got to do this again and again. And like, the grind mentally, professionally is far superior than college. There's no break.
No doubt. I think back to my college experience. I got drafted in high school, chose to go to college. And
why do you choose to go to college?
I specifically chose to go to college because I didn't think the you know, combination of opportunity, what round I got drafted in, what signing bonus was associated with that, the whole dynamic was worth skipping my college experience for. You know, and I think a lot of that was driven by other people and influences that were in my life, because I can also think back to that at 18, and I was just kind of like listening and trusting the people around me, that the baseball player in me, I got drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, so being a St. Louis kid, like, there's nothing I wanted to do more than to go put that jersey on. Yeah. And from the time I was young, you know, like, you know, I didn't grow up dreaming about playing college. I grew up dreaming about playing in the big leagues, you know, like, and you know, I chose to go in Mizzou. I didn't grow up like some big Mizzou fan, you know, I chose that for different reasons. And, you know, so in deciding to go do that, I look back on my experience now, and I'm so thankful that I chose to do that, because I look at it right now and how much I struggled on the field, off the field as a freshman. That holy cow, if I would have done that in a professional environment without, so much further from home, without the support system that I had, without some of the college, social friend clubhouse environments
Distractions.
that you get.
There's no distraction at the professional level.
100%.
You go
100%,
home
you're
and when
totally consumed by it.
when you talk to your friends, they're asking about baseball.
Well, yeah, and you go home and you're staying in an apartment with 3 or 4 of your other teammates too. Like there is
no
nothing
escape.
else to talk about.
No.
Like and on down the road, I've said this many times. I ended up getting married and my wife moved out with me. That like once my wife was out there with me, I felt like, holy cow, what a relief this is. I feel like I can come home. And not be all consumed by baseball, because I was the type of person that would go home and watch video, watch more baseball games, especially dealing with adversity through different times like that. I was all consumed by it and couldn't turn it off. And so, especially when you're in like ruts, like those things can spiral out of control without those types of distractions, if you will, things that kind of get your mind off of work or field and play. But
the
that
maturity that you're talking about is understanding how to, this is a game, this is not who I am.
For sure.
And I think that's, as you go through college and you can start to mature, you realize, look, who I am is not just a baseball player. I'm a student, I have a social life, I have a girlfriend. Where when you go to play professionally, it takes a special mindset going into it that you have to know. I've said many times, when I got there at 20, I think I signed when I was 22-ish, and there's some 18-year-olds there, and I'm like, I will never have my son at 18 in this environment, ever. I will not do it. But
I've thought the same thing.
It's when you're there and you realize 18 is so young. But like you said earlier, each person is a different situation. And my son was not going to college. Like, he did not have any desire to go to college. He didn't want to go. It wasn't. So he was going to play professionally, and I mean, he started training to play professionally when he was in 8th grade. But the thing that set him apart to me, and the thing that's still helping him, and you talked about with adversity, if you don't know how to handle adversity, you can't go play professionally. If you don't go into understanding, I'm going to fail and fail in a way I've never failed before.
Amen.
Because if you get frustrated in a high school game because someone makes an error behind you, or you don't get a call behind the plate, and you can't handle adversity at the high school level, don't even think about signing professionally. Go to college. It's not, especially with the NIL, financially, there's not a big jump between some NIL people can generate the money compared to some of the signing bonus. So if you bet on yourself, a lot of times you look at like a Paul Skeens that came out is up. Christian Moore played 3 years, he's up. A lot of these guys that are playing 3 years in the SEC come out and they're a year away from the big leagues. Chase Burns, didn't he just come up? A lot of these guys, it ain't taking long because SEC baseball prepares you. The downside is, what if I'm not good enough in the SEC? Well, then you wouldn't be good enough professionally.
Amen. And at least then too, you got so much like school to fall back on, relationships to fall back on, things that help prepare you for your life. And that was kind of some of my consideration. So going back to the experience for me, I look back right now, 32 years old, and look back at that 19-year-old experience for me, and I'm like, holy cow, if I would have done that in professional baseball, with where I was mentally and physically and everything, I'm just so not prepared for professional baseball. That if I would have had that same experience in professional baseball, I think my career would have been, much shorter. And there's some dynamics that I think I grew and evolved and learned how to handle adversity a lot better, in that college lifestyle, and all of those.
On and off the field.
Oh yeah, on and off the field, and I think that, just like work life for adults, like you can't really perform at a high level. You can't execute the way that you want to at work, at the field, unless your home life and everything is kind of under control, right? Like unless you, feel comfortable and stable and whatever, like in that dynamic. And the same thing's true for a baseball player, that, if you've got stuff going on outside the field, it's extremely hard to focus and execute at such a high elite level that you need to, that kiss that goodbye, basically. So I think the biggest consideration for everybody is just understanding what that off the field life, first and foremost, looks like for you, And then once you kind of start to get into some topics about on the field, you can look at, physical maturity. You can look at, like physical stature of just like how
projectability.
Projectability and all those things about how you're how you're built, how you're wired. You know, I was such a smaller,
Lanky.
less physically mature. Like I needed those couple extra years of college to not only mentally mature, like I already said, you know, but also physically mature, you know, from a physical stature to being able to pitch deeper into games, developing my off-speed pitches, you know, and all those things that, like, you know, having success in high school is one thing, and then having success at a upper level, you know, college environment or professional baseball is totally different. And you know, you can kind of get fooled, I guess, by how good my breaking ball was in high school, and you expect it to be that good in upper levels.
And I'm not,
as the competition
no
rises.
disrespect, but having success in high school is not difficult when you're that much more talented.
Correct.
If you're D1 or draft, I mean, high school should be easy for you because there's this gap of like, you're just that much better. Now, do the numbers always back that up? No, because when you're talking about the draft, and I think last year, I got this question a lot. It's like, oh, how come your son didn't hit 500? I'm like, he's not getting drafted based on stats.
Yeah, right.
He's getting drafted based on numbers he produced analytically, like rotational acceleration,
no doubt,
and his vertical, his 30, his 60, like all those numbers show what his body's capable of.
We've talked about that in a previous episode here of your next opportunity in baseball is way more about projectability based off of your tools.
Yes.
We talk a lot about, especially with our business, of building your engine, you know, that like you're getting the next opportunity based off of what, you know, scouts, analytics say that your success will be at the next level.
Yeah.
You know, so keeping your focus on developing and building those tools, you know, that's ultimately what the next opportunity is going to get you. It's not always about on-field success. I think the higher that you go, the more they weigh in on-field success because the talent gap is shrinking.
Oh, that's what,
because
after the
you're
bottom two,
better hitters.
Yeah, I mean, Titus had this conversation with the organization recently. They're like, look, we don't really care about stats and at rookie league or even low A.
Right.
But when you get to high A, you're expected to start producing to show that those 2 years of three, or how long you're developing, has prepared you.
Yep.
I mean, Drew Jones was first round pick. He may have been overall 1.
Yep.
He was in low A for 2 years because he was a high school kid that needed those 2 years. And that's what everyone's journey, like my son physically is going to have to mature and catch up with a lot of, I was just there. There's 2 things that I guarantee you. 1, physical size and projectability matter.
Yep.
And 2, you better learn how to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And those are things people don't tell you, but when you get there, the Latin, I didn't hear a song from America the entire time I was at a game because it was Latin. All you hear is Spanish. My son speaks Spanish now.
Those are some of the off the field dynamics that like you don't think about, you know, being able to work and work cohesively. You know, if you're a shortstop and you got a Latin second baseman, like you better be able to work with him, you know, like things that you've just never had to deal with before.
So they had a pick
you got a Latin
play
catcher and you're a pitcher,
yes.
Like you better be able to communicate. You got a guy on second and third, those are my runs. You know what I mean? Like we need to be on the same page here.
So they put a pick play on, the coach is Latin. The second baseman's Latin, Ty is not.
Yep.
So he came out and was speaking in Spanish because Ty's Spanish has gotten pretty good.
Yeah.
But Ty still didn't. And then when the manager walked away, him and the second baseman are trying to figure out what play was on. And it didn't get run.
Yep.
And they would have picked the guy off.
Yep.
But that's why it's in rookie level and you're trying to develop those. All things that you don't know.
Around too. That Latin kid's probably only been in the States for a year too. You know, like they've got all this learning curve too that, holy cow, you want to start looking into that, will just absolutely blow your mind, you know.
Their background.
Just coming from where they've come from, you know, that's a huge lifestyle adjustment, you know. So figuring out how to do all that kind of in the same time and space and then cohesively work as a unit on the field is a challenge, you know, it's definitely a challenge. And look, I don't know that coming from college like necessarily prepares you for any of that either. That's still going to smack you in the face no matter how old you get into
but
it. But
you're mature enough to handle the adversity, where most high school
for sure
athletes and over 30 years of coaching, the amount of time scouts have asked me, and the thing I always say is he hasn't learned how to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a couple guys that legitimately could have signed, had the opportunity, but if they would have signed, I think it would have been very detrimental to their development, because it's tough to develop when you're just beating yourself up every day. Like if you can't reset, and I mean, Titus's approach right now is like week by week.
Yeah.
You had a good week, good. Next week, start over. Because if you just go game by game, sometimes to me it's too up and down.
Yeah.
You set weeks. If you can stack good weeks, great. Yeah. But you're trying to limit the amount of bad weeks you have, and that's a different mindset than college.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's college is, for 99% of people, is the way to go.
Yeah.
there are very few, and I know there's some guys that will be drafted probably today as we're doing this, that you're going to have to make a decision. I would be very hesitant to sign professionally unless, to me, the two factors: one, you have money that's going to give you a head start for the rest of your life.
Yep.
It's tough to pass that up because injuries do happen.
Yep.
And two, the understanding of what you're really walking into.
Yeah.
Because having a holistic picture of like money is one thing, but it's not everything.
Well, yeah, and let's talk about the money piece of it real quick too. You know, like that's really not from like a greed or ego or pride standpoint either.
No.
You know, I think there's a lot of dynamics like that, you know, if handled appropriately, a nice size of money like that changes the trajectory.
Gives you a head
of
start.
your entire life. Yeah.
You're still going to have to take care of it. Yeah.
100%. But the money from the business side of things comes down to investment from the team.
Yes.
That ultimately allows you space to fail.
Opportunities.
Time to fail, yeah, and opportunities, 100%. That money is not so much about the greed aspect that like
No.
what's going in my pocket is going to change my life. It's way more about the opportunity that I'm going to get from the team and organization, and you could even say the same sort of argument, you know, on the college side of things
With
too,
NIL
right?
now, yeah.
NIL or scholarship, that you know by getting more. Of a monetary investment in you as a player, you've just got a little bit longer of a leash to fail because you're going to get opportunities because they got money and time invested into you that they believe in you. And when they can kind of put that investment into you, they're going to give you more time to figure some of those things out, especially in a professional environment. And on the college side of things, they can cut that money after a year and say, see you later, you need to go somewhere.
Professionally, no.
Yeah, on a professional standpoint, you got a 6-year, contract, and you've got time to kind of work through some of those lower levels, some of those at-bats. You're going to get pushed. Look, I've seen first rounders come in and totally suck at lower levels and still get pushed to the next level. And it was because of the money that they had invested in them that, you know, they're going to get an opportunity to go to the next level because that was money that they put down on you that they're going to say, well, sink or swim. We got to see if he's going to produce because of all this money that we got into him. That ultimately, at the end of the day, for a player, that's really all you're looking for. Because at the end of the day, in this baseball environment, you don't usually get to choose your opportunities. You don't get to choose your opportunities. All you can do is play the best that you can on the field, and it's always somebody else making the lineup. It's always somebody else making the rosters. It's always somebody else determining your fate of where you're going. So in that moment, when you're deciding to sign in the negotiation process, that is the only time in your career where you have any sort of say on what type of opportunities are going to come next for me. That it's not really a direct, opportunity, but it's indirectly you being able to kind of, understand what that investment like after that money or round selection comes. Because I also would say the higher round, even if you took maybe a little underslot or whatever, the higher round, they don't want to lose a fourth rounder. They don't want to lose a third rounder. You know what I mean?
So that's their currency.
Understanding that.
Their picks and their money, and they don't want to be wrong. So when they invest more money into someone, it's basically saying we believe as an organization this guy's going to be successful, and we won't be wrong.
Yep.
And that it does show, like Nate Orff, those that know Nate, who's back here throwing BP, doing a great job. Nate signed as an undrafted free agent. Yep. For him to make it from undrafted free agent at, I think he was 23, 24, all the way to the big leagues,
you got to produce and produce and produce.
You can't miss. And I think anyone that's been around professional baseball understands how hard it is to be an undrafted free agent and go from, especially a new position, and make it to the big leagues. But that's also why, if you have not seen it, look up Nate Orff home run. That's why his teammates carried him out of the dugout. I've never seen it before. His unbelievable.
Everybody in the clubhouse knows.
Craig Counsell, everyone on that bench, they carried him out for a curtain call. I've never seen one of the coolest things. I mean, I was in tears at my house because I knew the journey. I had those conversations when he was in A-ball. But that's that difference. Everyone's path's different. And Nate was able to do it. You made it to the big leagues a different way through Rule 5. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever decision you make sure you're doing it because it's the right decision for you and not because of all the pressure or the expectations around you.
Absolutely. I've got a personal experience just to prove your point that I got drafted by Oakland. I went to Miami. I went back to Oakland for the last year of my career. And I had someone very straightforward, bluntly tell me that there's a lot of people here that still think that you're a big leaguer and they don't want to be wrong. Like they you know what I mean? They wanted to prove themselves right by bringing me back over there. And that personal experience of me, I was like, oh dang, okay, well, because a lot of times you can like lose sight sometimes of maybe who's rooting for you and who's not. You know what I mean? Like, but understanding that like that investment that they had in me in 2014 in the 3rd round, in 2021, there were still individuals there that, to prove your point, that like still didn't want to be wrong, that they wanted to see me in an athletics uniform in the major leagues because they took me in a certain round with a certain financial backing to say, that guy's a big leaguer, that they didn't want to be wrong, 8 years later. And, that all that stuff is kind of, spun into all these opportunities that had nothing to do with me, that had nothing to do with anything I was doing on the field. It was totally a front office, thing that is prominent in every single front office,
They're all competitive. They all want to be right. Scouts want to be right. Front office want to be right.
Absolutely.
And they will make sure that they give opportunity. So if you're watching this, you get drafted day 1, congratulations, because just getting drafted is unbelievable.
Amen.
To be very cautious with how you're making this decision. Again, ask the people that have been through it. Ask guys that have been through the process. I mean, reach out to Brett or me or Nate or whoever you have, because it's a big decision, and it definitely sets the course of your life, and it's not one that you should make without having all the facts and then you and your family making that decision.
And if you get drafted and don't sign, it doesn't mean anything. If you don't get drafted, you can get picked really high later. I had a college team that didn't get drafted out of high school, got drafted in the first couple picks of the 2nd round, so it really doesn't mean anything in the big picture of things. What round you go in, whatever, you still got to go to the next place and produce
and develop.
Get
better.
And if that's what your focus should remain on, not if, that should be what your focus remains on, that no matter what happens right now in this circumstance, I got to show up tomorrow, get 1% better, and keep doing that. You keep stacking wins. You look back after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years, you're going to like where you're at. So thank you guys.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's for you guys. That's no different at 8U, 9U, 10U.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up on what team you're on and who won the tournament. Keep getting better and just develop day in, day out, and find the right people to support you, because this is supposed to be fun, and obviously the better you are, the more fun you have, but this isn't just about high school and professional. All the way back down to 5, 6, 7, 8U. The guys that are getting drafted today, chances are we're not the best players at 8U.
Look, and I've been around some 10-year big leaguers, and they come in and they're 34 years old, and they still are just looking to get better today. They're tinkering with pitches, they're doing something. The constant pursuit of getting better. This journey, you're never a finished product. As soon as you think you got it all figured out, this game will just absolutely destroy you. That whether you're 8 years old and you won something and you're on the best team and whatever, if you're not constantly looking, at what you can do to get better, someone's going to pass you up. If you're a 10-year big leaguer and you're 34 years old, someone's going to find something to take your spot, So that evolution of that, the way you evolve as a baseball player, you're just constantly looking at little things I can do to get better. And as soon as you stop that journey, so don't think that you're ever going to like have this figured out and this game's going to get easy for you at some point. This game's a challenge. It always will be. And you're always trying to find things to get better. So, all right. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. Drop us a comment if you got questions or thoughts down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Push that thing.
And check out tell them about your podcast real quick.
Well, Baseball 101 will be back shortly.
Yeah?
I'm not sure.
What do you think? When?
Well, that's a good question. We'll work through that.
Okay.
I got some things
I'll
going
get an
on.
update for you guys, and soon future episodes, I'll give you an update on where and when you can check out the next Baseball 101 episode. But it's got a lot of good, got a log of them.
I'll say go back.
Yeah, go back and check out a lot of good ones. A lot of good ones, a lot of good topics, similar things like this. Just trying to wrap your head around this landscape can be a challenge. So a lot of good info. Appreciate you guys checking out this episode, and we'll see you next time.